the best tangible thing that I learned from all of my military experience, believing in myself, right? To believe in that I may not know it, but I bet you I can figure it out, right? And that I may not be the strongest, smartest, fastest, or anything else, but you're not going to outwork me, right? And I think that's what it taught me more than anything is just belief in myself that if I just don't quit, I'm going to come out on top. And again, I come from nothing, man. Well, I say I don't come from nothing, but I dang sure didn't come from a lot.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Rush with the Unfinished Business Podcast, a podcast for veterans pursuing new life missions. Today, the Unfinished Business Podcast, a podcast for veterans pursuing new life missions, is proud to share the heroic and inspiring story of John Wayne Walding, a true American hero whose journey from soldier to survivor exemplifies courage, resilience, and determination. John Wayne Walding, ironically born on Independence Day in Groesbeck, Texas, dedicated 12 years to the United States Army, including 7 with the elite 3rd Special Forces Group in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. His service took him to Iraq and Afghanistan, where he served as a communication sergeant and a sniper instructor. On April 6, 2008, during the Battle of Shook Valley, John was struck by a sniper fire and lost his leg. Remarkably, he continued to fight alongside his team for another 4 hours, an act of bravery that earned him a Silver Star and a Purple Heart. John's military career is decorated with numerous awards, including the Bronze Star, Combat Infantry Badge, Combat Infantry Badge, among others. His determination didn't stop with his injury. He attended Special Forces Sniper School and made history as the first amputee to become a Green Beret sniper. After his military service, he founded Gallantry Global Logistics, a company dedicated to help veterans transition to civilian life. John also co-founded Live to Give, a beverage company. John's commitment to serve others extends beyond his business ventures. He travels across the country speaking to veterans groups, corporations, and the public about leadership, excellence, and overcoming adversity. His motto, lean forward, fight hard, inspires countless individuals to push through difficult times. John, it's a pleasure to have you on the Unfinished Business Podcast, a podcast for veterans pursuing new life missions.
Appreciate it.
So awesome.
Yeah, and great announcement is that John Wayne Walding will be our keynote speaker for our annual Fellowship Power Lunch, Veterans and First Responders Appreciation November event. That is November the 19th. We're honored to have you with us, John. Thank you very much.
The honor is all mine. I
Yes.
appreciate y'all invite me. After reading all that about me, I always say, sorry I'm not taller. His name's John Wayne, born on 4th of July, Green Beret, and it's just me.
Yeah, the swagger. Walk.
That's right.
Let's see.
Absolutely.
Awesome. As we became familiar with you at the that event with the Operation PTSD Out of the Darkness Gala, it was amazing when we heard you speak. Lisa Kay had made a special note in her mind about how awesome it was to hear your story, and then while she was sitting there at the same table, I was having my own thoughts about, man, one day I hope I get to reach out to this gentleman and see if I can get him on the podcast. And so here we are manifesting a great destiny that she had by herself. And when she told me she had you as a guest, I was like, well, let's do this.
In the words of the A-Team, I love it when a plan comes together.
Absolutely. Man, I was thinking about the unbelievable strength and growth that comes with going through what you've been through. Throughout your journey, you've undoubtedly encountered extreme adversity both on and off the battlefield. And along the way, you've likely met others facing similar, if not greater, challenges. What qualities or experiences in these individuals did you notice that might contribute to their incredible strength and personal growth? And is there a particular story of resilience and growth that stands out with you?
Well, with me, the saying that I always keep telling myself is that God's not doing this to me, He's doing it for me. Right? And I think that's the first thing to realize when you're coming through these tough times, that there's something to be learned from it, right? And that, first and foremost, it's what's the word? It's temporary. Right, so there is an ending, and I think becoming a Green Beret and just going through all the selection process and training that I've gone through, you've got this long pipeline that you just break down to not, I'm going to get through the next month, not the next week, not the next day, not even the next hour. It's just like, hey, I'm just going to make it through this, next 10 minutes, right? And to be able to compartmentalize instead of seeing this long runway of where I need to be, I think a lot of people, they psych themselves out saying, man, I got to climb Mount Everest rather than just going to take the next step.
Baby step.
Right, and just believe in yourself. So yeah, I really just lean on my faith that God's doing this, for me, and there's something good that's going to come from it, and just to never quit.
Yeah, that's
right.
Cool.
I think that's the common. You ask what I see in other people, right? I think that the commonality in the guys and gals that I've met that's overcome adversity to the extent that they have, it's just a no quit mentality. Right, to where you're just going to do the next thing that you can. You look at, you block out the noise, because there's a lot of noise that can happen of what's left and right, and just focus intimately and extremely right in front of you and say, you know what, again, I may not be able to climb that mountain, but I can take that step. And in my case, I can't even take a step right now, but what can I do? Okay, I can do some flutter kicks. Let me work on that. Yeah. That way when my leg is strong, my core is good to go, right? And so that's what has really helped me, just to block the noise out and just really focus on what you can affect.
That's amazing. You ever look at somebody who's going through that journey and you say, "Oh, I see it in his eyes. I see that eye of the tiger mentality, the beast mode mentality." Do you ever see somebody go, "Oh, this guy's got that fire in him"?
Yeah, determination has a smell.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When you see people that are just lasered in, know why God put them there, and they're just all in and trying to get it done. There's a certain, swagger around it, right? That I always, try to pull off of and aspire to be. Because look, at the end of the day, we're human, right? I tell everybody, don't believe my resume, because it's awesome, right? When you start reading it, John Wayne, Silver Star, Bronze Star, all this stuff. But the reality is, I'm just a human like you are, right? I have the same insecurities that you do. Well, it may not be the same, but I have insecurities just like you do, right? I have doubts like you do. I've got all the same human, emotions that we all do. It's just, what are you going to do when it's hitting you, right? And I think that's the, if there's any, not advice, because I don't feel like I'm smart enough to give advice, but just lessons off what I've learned is
that's the best advice, though. It's off your lessons.
Yeah, to put it in a Jerry Seinfeld way, life sucks for everybody. It sucks if you got one leg, sucks if you got two, right? It sucks if you're rich, if you're poor, you're black, you're white, right?
Yeah.
We all got stuff we're dealing with, and are you going to be a victim or a victor? Yeah. Right, and that's a choice, right? Happiness is a choice, and so so anyway, that's what.
That's awesome, man. Like, when we were at the Operation PTSD Out of the Darkness Gala, you spoke about the profound impact of seeing your parents in jailhouse jumpsuits. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Or something along that line during your childhood. How did this experience shape you as a child?
Profoundly, So the story is, and this isn't figurative, to the best that I can remember, it is literally the first memory of my father, right? Was being in the back seat of my grandmother's Lincoln Town Car, and we were having to stop because there was a chain of convicts in front of us in orange jumpsuits tied to each other walking in front of us. Well, one of them was my dad, right? That's the youngest, memory that I can think of, and he was obviously walking from county lockup to the courthouse to get sentenced to jail, right? My mom, she was already in jail. And going back to don't believe my resume, right? Because my resume doesn't tell you that I come from a broken home, but fortunately, I always say that again, God's doing this to me, not for me, or for me, not to me, right? And God showed me what wrong looks like with my parents.
Wow.
He showed me what right looks like with my grandparents, and there's probably more importance into the wrong.
Yeah.
Right, to say, hey, and so you're asking to answer your question about, did that shape me? Absolutely, right? I knew I was never going to do drugs because that got me in front of my dad in an orange jumpsuit, right? I knew that I was not ever going to do that, and I wasn't a victim saying, oh, poor me, daddy didn't love me, mama didn't love me, or anything like that, right? I wasn't, trying to blame anybody other than what my circumstances, and just learning from that circumstances and realize because of that tough time that I had, right? And then, by the way, going from, you know, that little kid in the backseat going to some redneck town, Groesbeck, Texas, where we had 3,500 people, but a $10 million football field. You know, come on, go Goats, right? We won state in '91. You know, hadn't won it since then, but you know, going to that little kid there to, you know, joining the military, being a Green Beret, you know, getting the Silver Star, being in the Oval Office with the president, being on stage with another president, then being right here doing what we're doing today, right? Like that happens here in this country, and that's the American dream. I hope people remember.
Yeah, added to this, how did serving in the elite 3rd Special Forces group and the Army in general help you discover your true self?
Well, I think it did discover my true self, right? And true self, you know, that's kind of a vague statement, right? The way to relate to the people, you know, listening or watching. There's no academic thing that I can tell you about because there was a lot of academics that was taught to me, but you know, in the military. But the best tangible thing that I learned from all of my military experience, believing in myself, right? To believing in that I may not know it, but I bet you I can figure it out, right? And that I may not be the strongest, smartest, fastest, you know, or anything else, but you're not going to outwork me. Right, and I think that's what it taught me more than anything is just belief in myself that if I just don't quit, I'm going to come out on top. And you know, again, I come from nothing, man. Well, I say I don't come from nothing, but I dang sure didn't come from a lot.
Yeah.
Right, and so now, like in business, you know, with the company that I run and other things, when I see a lot of these, you know, a smarter guy probably wouldn't have did what I've done, right? but I believe in myself to say, you know what? Yeah, I've never run a logistics company, but I know how to lead from purpose, and I know how to lead from the front, and I'm going to get in there and I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right, and that's the best thing that has helped me.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, everything you're talking about, you know, just lean from the front with purpose. You know, that's something I want to touch on later in a few minutes, but
Yeah.
it's okay.
Your dedication to duty is really evident. I love it, your strength and courage. Can you pinpoint where this core value originated? And with that, was there a particular individual in your life who inspired you and became a role model?
I mean, that's a no-brainer. It's my grandparents. You know, Grace Walding is an angel sent from heaven, you know, for me and my brother, and she's the one that has taught me compassion, taught me empathy, you know, taught me, you know, how to see people for who they are, you know, and what true nurturing is, right? What true selfless life is, right? Because there's no bigger, maybe than my wife. She's probably a bigger example of what a selfless life is. But my hero is my grandfather, Sam Walding. He didn't graduate 8th grade. Came from, you know, 1 of 12 out of Cut and Shoot, Texas. You know, started roughnecking while he was 14, ended up being the boss of the whole dang thing, right? And he's just got this, you know, work attitude, and your point about duty to his job, his family. You know, that man is the most devoted man, that, you know, and no excuses type guy and that I've ever met. Like, I wish I could work half as hard as Sam Walding did, right?
Yeah.
And that goes back to duty, right? Like, you know, one of his big things is it doesn't really, you know, we weren't an academic family, and I'm not knocking those that are. Like, school's important for sure, you know, be useful.
That's good.
Right, like that was his big thing is, you know, you make people better for knowing you.
Yeah.
Right, full stop, and that's what it just hit in my heart to where it doesn't, again, matter what my degree says or how many doctorates or all that stuff, you know, it is, am I making you better for knowing me, full stop, right? And that's what he taught me is just to be a useful person, you know, in every capacity, right? And so that's where I pull from.
Yeah. You're a good servant, excellent servant. Yeah.
Well, that's
good
where
qualities from
gratitude and joy
grandparents.
comes from, right? It is service. You know,
Yeah.
this selfie generation that we've, you know, it's this very self-centered culture that we have now, where people want more followers, you know, bigger vacation spot, bigger this and that, and really, you know, people, you know, they always say finding your true happiness, or, you know, people forget that, like, happiness is tied to happenings, right? Something good happens, you're happy. Something bad happens, you're sad.
Yeah.
right? So if you're just chasing happy this whole time, doing something for you,
It won't last.
right? That's the saddest, most deprived place in the world. Like, because if that truly is the meaning of life,
Yeah.
well, where's probably the best example of people that are chasing themselves to making them happy? It's Hollywood, isn't it?
Right.
Right? It's all about them, and they're all about their, and that's
Yeah.
the most
Or
crazy
more.
dumpster fire that there is.
Or Las
You
Vegas.
know, right? But with being a servant, serving God and serving others, that's where true joy and gratitude comes from, right? I'm sure
Yeah,
y'all know
we
it firsthand.
totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's exactly where Fellowship Power Lunch, why Fellowship Power Lunch was created, so that we can motivate, encourage, and inspire our communities and build bridges together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I would like to tie on that with what role have inner strength and faith played in overcoming significant challenges you have faced, and how do these elements continue to support you in your personal and professional life?
Man, I don't think there's a word to articulate the significance of what my faith is, right? So if my faith is, if roles and morals you have to jot down, my faith's the paper that you would write it on, right? That's how important it is. Without it, there's no list. So that is the absolute foundation and identity that I have with Christ. First and foremost, that like God loves me,
Yeah.
right? So much that He gave His Son Jesus to die for my sins, and because of that blood, my salvation it comes, right? Like
Yeah.
I can never get over that, right?
Right.
Never get over the gospel that God loves so much that He came to humble Himself. By the way, right? Humility is probably one of the most godly things a man can learn, and woman. Like Tim Keller, I think, put it best, where like humility is not thinking less of yourself; it's just thinking of yourself less.
Yes.
Right? Like that was so greatly put, And so with that, and what is the best example is God, coming down here dressed as a human in humility, right? Lived like us and had the choice, by the way. I think people forget that He could have very easily got off that cross and said, I'm perfect, you're not. I'm going back up to heaven. Peace out, right?
Come back up that mountain.
And so to know that He did that for me and you, right? Like that's it. And so, with that comes a now what, right? I think in the book of James it says, faith without works is like filthy rags, right? Like, hey, you believe, now you got to go to work, right?
Yes.
And so that going back to where is my faith at, like that's what drives me, right? To like, okay, God, I get it. Let's go to work and do what we can do to glorify You.
Wow.
That's awesome. I was thinking about my friend Paul Slough. He was in a he got wrongly convicted for actions made in combat. Right.
Yeah.
He was with part of Blackwater Foundation, and when I was interviewing, he was talking to me about like he had this like why me moment, right, where he fell to his knees. He was incarcerated, spent 8 years in prison. Fell to his knees one day and just said, "Why me? Why am I going through this? Why am I going through this?" Do you feel like, and I watched some of your interviews as well, and you had a why is this happening to me moment? You said, it's not it's happening for you, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like as Christians or just in general that that most people have a come to Jesus moment?
Well, the answer is always yes. It's just whether or not they're listening, right? I do believe God's always speaking to us. It's whether or not you want to hear it, right? And so I do believe that people do have that moment. For me, and it's different for everyone, for sure, right? I have I don't want to say an extreme, example of it, but I was literally dying on the battlefield, right? And I gave it to God, which I've always believed in God. And my pastor, I think he puts it in a very good perspective to where, it's kind of like, there's the Dallas Cowboys and there's the New York Giants, right? Like, well, I believe that there is a team in New York, but I believe in the Cowboys, right? Like that. And so, like, from a Christian perspective, I think a lot of us believe that God is there and that He did this, but putting, to pistuo, right, to put that faith in Him that's it, right? That's the goal. And so that's, I went from believing that to believing in, that day on April 6, 2008, where I was 10,000 feet on a mountain with my leg tied to my thigh, right? And I distinctly remember saying, God, this is all I got. Right? Like if I make it out of here, it's not because of me, it's because of you. And I didn't get that answer that time, right? Because I didn't know at the time. I just said, hey, God, this is you, and waking up that next morning proved to me that God is real. Yeah. Right? That he did choose me. And so, yeah, I think that to your point about, he's talking to us, it's just whether or not we're listening.
Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you, God, for John Wayne Walding and him being here today. And,
Yes.
for real, thank you, Lord.
Yeah. And by the way, sorry to go
go
along.
ahead.
I always want to make sure that people realize, it's okay to question God. Yeah. Right? It's okay to say, why me? Who hadn't done it, right? Yeah. It's just a posture that you have while you're doing that, right? Is it the victim mentality where you're blaming him, saying why? Or is it the victor mentality where okay, God, why are we here? Yeah. Right? What's the lesson that I should learn from this, right? And because again, read the book of Job. A lot of why me's in that book, right? Yeah. And so I do, it is okay to question, and it's actually okay to be angry at, right? That's actually a healthy relationship, right?
And sometimes the seasons are longer, and exhaustion, you just get exhausted.
Right.
That you have to just ask him and give it to him, and
Well, and that's like in my prayer time, I don't ever pray for God to take my problems away.
Yeah.
I love this word because I remember Paul prayed to Timothy before he became the pastor of the church of, I think it was Ephesus. He prayed for the will to endure. I love that word, right? God, give me the will to endure this because I know you're doing it for a reason, right? And so that's what I hope people learn from that. It's all right to question, and it's just have the patience. Pray for that will to endure what he's putting you through, because you're going to be better on the other side of it.
Amen. Amen for that. Living with courage. Your guiding principle, lean forward, fight hard, embodies the concept of living with courage.
Right.
Can you give us examples of how it has shaped your personal and professional decisions?
Man, courage, John Wayne saying, right, is being scared to death but saddling up anyway.
Yeah.
Right? That's, I know a lot of John Wayne quotes, by the way, because people forget that, he did the movie The Green Berets. Right? So I was going through Green Beret school, we know John Wayne, and the family does a lot for Special Forces still, and so I've had to learn a lot of trivia to do push-ups for him. But no, that the courage, that's the one thing that I tell my kids. If you learn one thing from me, again, it's not about academics, it's not about being the smartest, it's about seeing something, knowing it's hard, then go punch it in the mouth. Right? Because that's what life is about, right? It's about just knowing that this is going to be difficult and not quitting.
Yeah.
Right? Because at one point you're going to be in this environment, in this scenario, in this dilemma. There's going to be a point where you have to act. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, it gets easier the next time.
Yeah.
Then it gets easier the next time. And then that line just keeps getting further and further away from you. And now you've just gotten in this habit of just letting life overcome you and happen to you rather than going out and just doing the best that you can, right? And what I love about lean forward and fight hard, one, it's a very visual statement, right? Because again, your life's going to punch you in the face. What are you going to do? Are you going to crouch down? No, you're going to lean forward and you're going to punch back, right? And what courage has done in my life, it really does stem back from that confidence in myself, right? Again, I don't know. I don't have it all figured out. Trust me. I've got a lot I've got to figure out, but it's just that confidence to know that I'm never going to give up, right? And when you know you're never going to give up, it gives you that courage to be vulnerable, right? It gives you that, because vulnerability, by the way, is one of the most manliest things you'll ever do. Right, because without vulnerability, there's no glory, right?
Right.
You got to put yourself out there, which is crazy because a lot of warriors don't realize how vulnerable they put themselves into position until afterwards, right? Now, why don't you do that emotionally?
Yeah.
Why don't you do that spiritually?
I get it. Yeah.
Right? You can do it in combat. Well, why don't you do it in the bedroom with your wife? And I don't mean that way. I mean hey, how am I, suffering as a husband?
Yeah.
Right? Seeing you and how can I make you better, right? And so. That's what courage has played a part in my life is just, saddling up anyway.
That's awesome.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah. I would, making a positive impact and finding meaning. Let's talk about gallantry, global, logistics, and live to give. What have been some of the most rewarding outcomes of these initiatives?
Wow. So, I mean, the first thing is changing lives,
Yeah, amen.
right? Because that's why we're there,
Yeah.
right? Don't get me wrong. We are a for-profit company, and I don't want to make a little bit of money. I want to make a lot of bit of money, right? One of the reasons why I went into logistics, I realized the guy that owns the Houston Astros, Jim Crane, he owns Crane Logistics, right? So I can do the redneck math there. I'm like, man, that's a lot of money, right? All jokes aside, how many vets can we help if we had something of that significance?
Yes.
Right? Like, think about the power that you could, that you could have to help people there, right? And so with gallantry, that's what we, our whole purpose is to hire veterans and first responders, right? Like I said, we said off camera, right? I know firsthand what it's like, to have my leg shot off and then have Americans say, here, let me help you, right? And I want to forever give that back, right? And that's what we do is by, being a service-disabled veteran, Hispanic-owned freight company that specializes in shipments of consequence, right? On the Live to Give side, we're a bottled water company that every bottle you buy, we give half back to veteran first responder charities,
Okay.
right? Like, that's it. Drink water, save lives. Like that. How
Yeah.
easy is that, right?
That's wonderful.
And so HEB's been a great partner of ours. I always love plugging them because
Gotta get
HEB, if you're listening, hey, we got some freedom going on.
HEB.
Yes.
But they really are great people, and they really did believe in us when no one else did, and I do mean that, right? Like,
Beautiful.
because as much as we think it's a no-brainer to put that bottle of water in a cooler anywhere, it's not that much. It's a tough business.
Yeah.
7-Eleven don't care.
Yeah.
Kroger don't care. Like, it's all about margins. It doesn't matter what the purpose is, and HEB did care. I did care, and so yeah, that's what we're doing there, and we've just got to deal with Water Source One down in Austin to help partner with us to really break the doors in and get into more places, and so again, we're going to change lives.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see how we can help you into some other organizations and platforms for your Give to Live. That would be awesome. Yeah.
Again, you would think it'd be a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
Because we're the same. I jokingly say Chuck Norris, he bottles our water. My wife was like, "Really? Only you could have Chuck Norris make your water." I'm like, "Hey, babe, I don't." But he's got a bottling company down in Navasota. Seaforce is his. He has artesian water. But we're a reverse osmosis purified water, like Smart Water.
Yeah.
I jokingly said, "Hey, I want to make as legally possible Smart Water."
Yeah.
Right? It's good water. You can't get mad at it. It's good for you. I just want to know if you move your hand 5 inches to the right off of Smart Water onto Live to Give, you're going to change lives.
Yes.
Right? Who wouldn't want to do that?
Yes.
Right? And that's
Amen.
the purpose.
That's awesome, man. Wish we had a bottle so I could. I mean, now I'm going to go to HEB and go look for a Live
Yeah.
to Give for sure. I'm
Yeah.
serious.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Having the name of the podcast is Unfinished Business, a podcast for veterans pursuing new life missions. When you got out, did you feel like you had some unfinished business, and and you had some new? Obviously, you have some new life missions now.
Yeah.
Like, did you feel like I have some unfinished business? As far as like.
Man, the answer is always going to be yes,
Yeah.
right? I'm an
Yeah.
alpha guy, overachiever,
Yeah.
I always want to do more, which is good and bad, right? But any veteran misses where he left,
Yeah.
right? So for sure, I think about the guys, right? For sure, I think about the culture, the community, the purpose, the meaning of what Special Forces meant on my shoulder every day when I went into the office, right? Like that, unfinished business, no. Again, God, I believe that this is His path, that it's not mine, right? And to have the arrogance to think that I have something to do with it, I just, I don't have that, right? But I definitely am never finished being the best man that I could be, for my God, my wife, my kids, and my country, right? Like, God, family, country, I think that I'll never stop serving.
Yeah. Lisa Kay, if you'll take this next one here with the Fellowship Power Lunch, talk about Fellowship Power Lunch, the Veterans Appreciation Luncheon.
So Fellowship Power Lunch, their annual Veterans and First Responders Appreciation Luncheon, what are 3 things that you would hope people would leave with before the event ends, or when the event ends?
So definitely the 3 things that I would like people, and I won't give my speech away, but first and foremost is this country is the best country that's ever existed on the planet, and we should never apologize for that. Right? That American flag is the biggest, brightest beacon for hope that's ever existed, right? And that I'm not saying we're perfect, right? I'm not saying that we don't have problems, and I'm not saying some of those aren't real and important that we didn't, but having said that, we should, I think as a, culture, we need to have a little bit of grace when talking about our flaws.
Yeah.
Right? That this vehicle called America, that our founders, this experimental vehicle that our founders, that made, which by the way, with good men and women dying, right, to fight a king, a tyrant, to get this vehicle, right? Just because it's 248 years old doesn't mean, you run it off a cliff.
Right.
Right? It may need oil change, a tire rotation, whatever that is, right? So yeah, we got stuff to work on, but definitely, hopefully people leave knowing that, man, this country really is, the greatest that's ever existed. Another thing is the magnitude of what those 2 words, thank you, mean to a veteran.
Yeah.
Because we weren't having these in the 70s.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Right.
it doesn't lose sight of me what we happened in Vietnam and how we treated the soldiers during that war and that time. And so, hopefully that they'll leave knowing that the magnitude of, again, what those thank you means to us, and hopefully they leave inspired by some stories, right? To say, man, if they can do that, what can I do?
Yeah.
Right? Because I always want to bring it back to, it all starts with you, right? Change starts with you, right? Be the light that shines in the darkness, right? That's why I don't do social media. Probably the worst business decision I could ever have, because people are like, man, how many followers you can have? I'm like, don't care, man. That's not, I'm not anti-social. There's a lot of good that happens from it, but it can get very negative, right? And that algorithm will just keep slinging it your way, right?
Yeah.
And when you're looking at it, instead of just going and talking, man, did you see the debate last night, how bad this is, or whatever, that's right.
Yeah.
Instead of being that guy, right, why don't you be the guy that shines light,
Yeah.
right? Because when you do that, then this person's going to shine, and that person's going to shine, right?
I say that all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Encourage someone today just because, just because.
Right.
Just put a smile on their face, or.
I even ask
Totally
my
agree.
kids that question. I'm not kidding you. Like when we have dinner and we sit down, I'm like, who did you make smile today?
Hey, that's awesome. Yeah.
I mean, a simple question, right?
Yeah.
Because that gets in their forefront of their mind. They're like, oh, Dad's going to ask me that. And, the better thing is they actually have answers, right? They notice it when they make other people smile, right? And when you notice that, you see that, that's good. And it just, that good on top of good on top of good just
and
keeps
they'll want to
going.
keep doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah.
John Wayne, we are so happy to have you be the keynote speaker for this year's event. It's going to be, it's amazing. We're excited. Lisa Kay and I were really excited when she said she was gonna. She had asked you, and I was like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah.
It's like rock and roll.
Yes,
So
and
really,
it was an instant yes. So thank you very much.
Well,
You're blessing us tremendously. You'll inspire so many. A room full of 300 plus, veterans and first responders, and there'll be smiles and tears and just lots of hugs and. Yeah.
Well, if people can get something to listen to this little redneck kid from Groesbeck, Texas, to know I can go from that to doing this, even you can do it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
well, it's a pleasure to have you on the Unfinished
Pleasure.
Business Podcast,
Yeah.
a podcast for
Thank you
veterans
very much, yeah.
pursuing new life
Thank you.
missions,
God
and
bless you.
we really appreciate it. Guys, that's it for Unfinished Business, a podcast for veterans pursuing new life missions. As I always say, have peace and the light in you, and remember that the ocean refuses no river.